everybody.
Hey,
Good afternoon. It's Moms on the Mind, and I am Dr. Dana.
I'm Amber.
Welcome,
Hope y'all are
welcome.
doing okay this Monday.
Yes, so it is Monday, and today our topic we're talking about gifted and challenged. So we're talking all things about being gifted and talented, getting into gifted and talented, and things like that. But the first thing we need to start off is with our what?
Mommy
Meltdown. That was the
meltdown.
worst drum roll ever. But so I don't really have a mommy meltdown this
um,
week. Do you have one?
I have one related to this topic for today.
You don't say.
So, as you all are coming in the room, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you about my mommy meltdown, and go ahead and share this with other people so that they can go ahead and log in while we're live. Okay, so girl.
What happened?
Okay. Well, my child, we were in one district and we decided I switched jobs. So we decided for him to go to his home school, the school which was in his, neighborhood.
Okay.
And so he transferred, and my child was in gifted and talented, and he got into gifted and talented in kindergarten, and loves it. It's been doing great with it. He also, now here's a kicker, he also receives speech therapy services for articulation.
Okay.
So when you transfer, obviously you transfer all these services. Tip is what you would think, right?
Right.
So when we transferred, of course, they accepted the IEP or the ART that Texas calls it. So he could receive his speech services. But do you know, they told us that they would not accept his gifted and talented.
Why?
Because his testing had been 3 years old, because he's going into third grade. And so he got tested in kindergarten. And, once you get tested, you're tested in. If you're in that district, you don't retest every year.
Right. It's not like, a neuropsych evaluation.
Yes. And so they told me that he had to test all over again. Well, the pandemic.
Because okay, go ahead. Because I
So
know
with the pandemic, I was nervous because I'm like, we've been out of school. It's been virtual learning. Like, I don't know how these test scores gonna come out. Is he still gifted? Absolutely, I think so. But the testing anyway.
Right.
So, talked to the teacher. She was like, don't worry about it. It's fine. He tested. So, they didn't let him in. They sent me a letter and said he is not in gifted and talented.
Girl, no.
I went mama bear.
What you done did, Better Business Bureau?
Listen, I immediately sent an email. I always said I wasn't going to be that parent that sends these long emails in the middle of the night.
Not in the middle of the night.
Yes, in the middle of the night. And listen, here's the thing. It's like he needs gifted and talented. Like he is definitely a gifted child. He needs those services just like he needs his IEP services. So I requested a appeal to the decision, and so then they sent me the formal appeal, and yeah, we've been going through the process. I've sent back a 4-page letter and a binder and all that. So we are currently in the GT appeal process. But the mommy meltdown happened just like when I received the letter, because it's just so unfair. And he's already doesn't like the school because he's new, and it's been taking him a long time to just get adjusted. And so that was just like a dagger on top of just trying to get adjusted, trying to get him to make new friends, there's just been a lot surrounding it. And the one thing he's asked, when am I going to go to AIM class? Because in the last district, they called it AIM. And so I'm like, your GT class? So I haven't told him that he didn't get placed. I'm just
Oh.
waiting on the appeal to see what happens because it's not about getting placed. It's about the transfer. We've already gone through all this. You
Right. So,
can
because that doesn't
transfer.
make sense. If he's already been qualified and selected for the program, why would he have to retest? And I guess my question is, like, what is the retest qualification? Like, is there a standard set up for
Okay,
retesting in each district? Like, how that work?
so every district is different, right?
Uh-huh.
And the crazy part about this, and this is why Nick was like, calm down. Because, like, I was really crying about this because I just felt like it's so unfair.
Right.
The crazy part is in his previous district, the same test and the same criteria, because each district can make their own criteria and have their own different tests that
Right.
they use. Well, these two districts, they use the same test and the same criteria.
So
They have
then, what's the
the
point of him retaking the
exactly.
test all over again?
Exactly. And listen, my thing is too, if you're going to retest all of your kids in the district every 3 years,
That's
fine.
different. Yeah.
But if you're not like, because
You know, I'm
you
putting my
can't
little kid
take,
out.
right, you can't take another, you give me another third grader and gifted and talented that got in kindergarten, and you test them over and see if they have the exact same scores too. It's not gonna happen.
Girl. So you've emailed them and you're waiting on them to email you back. Like, where you at?
No, so I've emailed them. They emailed me back and said, and I emailed them and said, hey, these are my concerns. I'm appealing this decision. They
Gotcha.
emailed me back and they said, here's the official appeal process. So I've gone through that process. I've completed those forms. I've sent in that paperwork. So now we're waiting to hear back their decision.
What is the usual turnaround time? Do you know?
So I was told that once I send it to the school and the school sends it to the district, because now it's at the district level, then they have 10 days to meet.
Okay.
And so after their 10 days, obviously 10 school days to meet and look at everything that I've sent in, and then I'll hear something after that. So I'm guessing I sent it in. I guess it's been about almost a week now.
So this week you should know something by the end of this week.
I think by the end of this week or beginning of next week. But the mommy meltdown for the week was just a number, just like a buildup of just like it's just been going. And then he's just not liking the school. And then his teacher is gone on maternity leave. So it has just been a lot. So y'all, when we talk about like parenting, my daddy used to say parenting is a 25-hour, what is it? 8 days a week, 25-hour job.
Yeah.
Like it is nonstop. It is beyond your normal 24-hour, your normal 7 days a week. It is just nonstop.
You don't get off days.
You don't get off days. So that's been my mommy meltdown. But it's been like a mommy meltdown, mommy showdown.
Okay, because you about to take it, you about to string them up, ain't it? See, so she don't wrote her letter.
Y'all.
Excuse me.
I'm gonna have to like right? We have like 2 more episodes, like this episode and one more before our finale. And so I'm gonna have to, if I don't hear anything next week,
because
I'm gonna have to kind of let y'all know.
Right. Because this really brings us into our topic today. Because originally we just planned to talk about gifted and talented anyway. And so what I did before, because I was, trying to be a little prepared, is looked up the definition or a definition, one of the definitions of gifted and talented. And basically a gifted and talented student is a child or a youth who performs or shows potential of performing at a high level of accomplishment when compared to everybody else in the rest or their peers in class. So this means that they can have like a high performance intellectually or academically, or they can be super creative or super artistic. They can possess an unusual capacity for leadership, and they can excel in specific areas of the academic field. So because everybody, I've noticed that people really enjoy, parents, of kids who are gifted and talented definitely do not have a problem letting you know that their kids are gifted and talented. And they will speak about it ad nauseum with you and the things that they are gifted about and why they're so talented, honey. And so the reason I feel like it was a good episode for us to talk about is like, is it really good? What are the pros? What are the cons? Why should I want my kid to be in it? If my kid doesn't make gifted and talented, does that mean that they won't get the same opportunities? And what is it? What are some of the pitfalls? And so one of the things, because now that you're bringing up this little mommy meltdown, I wanted to talk about how they assess kids too, which is like your whole, part of your, you're the teacher and the education diagnostician. And so, because what I read was an assessment criteria is based on the population of the district, how gifted the kids are, the coordinator at the school, what the resources are, and they review the local definition of what gifted and talented is, and they view the district demographics. And to me, all I heard was racial bias, because districts, will not all look the same in terms of demographics. And what does that mean for the gifted and talented program in those areas, as well as the assessment of kids who are gifted and talented?
Right.
And like when you were saying that you were moving districts, I was like, I wonder what these districts look like, girl.
Well, first of all, okay, were you in gifted and talented growing up? Because I remember wanting to be in it, and I remember being recommended and tested and being so hurt that I didn't get in. And I don't even think my parents told me I didn't get in. I don't even think they really knew all of it. I just remember them picking up the kids from our class who was gifted and talented. They were going to another class. Yes. And I remember testing with them.
Right.
But when it was time for them to go to class, so I just kind of assumed that I did. But my parents didn't make it a big deal.
I mean, I tested twice and I never got in, but I was just like, whatever, because I felt like I did other activities with the gifted and talented people. Like you were still National Honor Society. There was still whatever the bowl, quiz bowl or whatever all that stuff was, Mu Alpha Theta. So to me, it was like, I still see you
but I wanted to go to the class.
Why?
Because I wanted to go, but I mean, I was in APAC, and so the advanced, I forgot what it stands for, but
right.
I was in APAC in middle school, and so the advanced, what is it? Advanced academic programs, whatever.
Don't ask me, girl.
So the gifted and talented kids were there, and then when we went to Jim Hill, when we went to high school, I was in the IB program. We both were. So the G2 kids were in there too.
Look at the thing. I wasn't in APAC. I wasn't in gifted and talented. You were either. We still ended up in IB.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so to go back to
let's talk about these demographics, because I do really, and I looked at some stuff, but I would be interested in your opinion and if you think that is kind of contributing to your fight for your kid.
I definitely think it does. Just being a little black boy, first of all, and that's one thing I told the district, there in the United States, 9% of African Americans are in advanced programs.
What?
Not just
9%?
9%.
That's low.
That is very low. And so I talked about how there is an overrepresentation of Black kids in special education. We dominate special education, right? But then there's an underrepresentation of Black kids in gifted and talented, or even in advanced programs, period. And
advanced, these programs fall under special education, right? Gifted and talented. I remember you telling me that one day. Or are they two separate things?
So when statistic wise, we're talking about two separate things.
Okay.
Because it depends on the state too. And
gotcha.
I think federally, when you look at special programs, yes, gifted and talented falls on the special programs. Gotcha. But when we're talking about special education versus gifted and talented, we're talking about two separate, things statistically.
Gotcha.
And so I definitely think it's You know, and sometimes I think it's unconscious too.
Right.
Like I think there are, and this is what I put in my letter too. There are systems in place that will hinder diversity simply because the systems are not set up to help black kids or black people. It was set up a long time ago to hinder them, and no one else questions it. No one, challenges
Right.
it. No one. And in my opinion, I could be totally wrong about this, but before this rush to the suburbs, I feel like who was the ones like moving all the time, really? It was usually your minorities, kind of moving, maybe not as stable. And so now you have these policies where you can't just transfer your gifted and talented, but you can just transfer your IEP.
I was going to say, because I'm sorry, why is your IEP? No, let me write this letter. Your IEP goes with you everywhere. So that's why I was kind of surprised when you said his, gifted and talented did.
Yeah. And then the districts, they can set up, our education agency, as far as what I've read, they don't really have a set, hey, here's a test that you take, here's the percentile you have to be in. So like in my area, the test that they've been taking is the COGAT test, which is a cognitive test. And then they take the ITBS, which, a lot of people have heard about the ITBS. Remember we took the ITBS when we were younger?
Sure did, girl.
So reading and math. So you have to be, so at these districts that we're working with, you have to be in the 97th percentile. And here's the thing with my kid. Not only was his quantitative on COCAT was in the 97th percentile, and then either your reading or math of ITBS has to be in the 97th percentile. Okay, his was both. Like reading and math was in the 97th percentile.
Well, there's no reason why he should not be accepted.
Right. So, and here's the other thing. So I definitely think, so just to sum that part up, I definitely think there is a lot of like,
right.
What do you call it? Even if there's just unconscious bias,
like you said, unconscious bias.
Yeah, of blacks and other minorities being able to access advanced programs. But I think the other thing is, and I follow a lot of homeschool mom groups who talk about the challenges with twice exceptional kids too. So you might be gifted and talented, but
I've been seeing that little phrase. Can you explain what that is? Twice exceptional.
So twice exceptional is you might be gifted and talented, right? But there are also challenges like you might have ADHD or anxiety, or you have or autism. There are other needs, there are special needs there, but you're also gifted. And so they call that twice exceptional. So I've been following a lot of mom groups who've had a hard time with public schools kind of allowing their twice exceptional kids to be in these GT advanced programs.
Why?
Because they are not accommodating as much, because when you think of a gifted child, right? Like typically you're thinking, oh, it's so smart. The kid is so smart. They can, independent. You don't really, they just need a little guidance and stuff. But really a lot of your gifted kids are ones that needs the accommodations
for other things,
whether it's attention, whether it's anxiety. So I don't know. That's one thing maybe we can get one of those homeschool moms on here and do an interview one day.
Oh, that'd be nice. Because that's what one of the things that they were talking about is that, you realizing that your child is gifted in one area, but not gifted in another. And so you need the advanced level on this hand, but then on another hand, you need somebody to come in and say, okay, this is how we get you. So everything is on another level. And I could see a program that is geared toward making somebody excel at their highest in all areas will not cater to the things that a kiddo needs, a little bit more help in.
And, and I think that's a misconception too of gifted and talented, that they are
Yeah.
some kids are just gifted in all areas, right? But
Right.
I think that's a misconception too, that kids, if they're gifted, they good. They are,
They just good and everything. My kid don't need nothing.
right. Right. Whereas there's always usually one area that, or one or two areas that they struggle with. They might be gifted in one thing, like writing is our, like, that
Yeah.
is the area that we need help
Right.
with the most. But
Yeah.
I don't know, everybody has that, right? Like everybody has that I'm good at something and
Right.
then maybe not so good.
And other things.
Mm-hmm.
But that was part of the things, because I think one of the other things we wanted to talk about today is like the pros and the cons, of being gifted and talented. And that's one of the things that they label as a con, that, oftentimes even parental figures not realizing, okay, they may be struggling in one area, even though they're gifted in multiple other domains. Like they're gifted
Mm-hmm.
in three things and it's one thing they're struggling. And so the expectation of them to go and get it and get stuff done and get it done easily is not. You're like, why is he not doing this? Is he being
Right.
defined? Da, 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 da. You just not trying hard. You being lazy. And it's that, no, that area is one that they're struggling. They might have like dysphonia, dysgraphia. They might have a reading problem, but they might be exceptionally well in math, or they might be so creative and have other things going on. And so I actually went and looked at, some of the pros and cons of gifted and
Mm-hmm.
talented. So these are the pros. You let
Okay.
me know what you think. Increase self-esteem, right? You tell them somebody they're gifted, you are gifted and talented. Hey, they feel good about themselves and what they got going on. So
Yeah.
that's good.
I
But they
wonder, okay, is the con connected to this one? Because
yes,
that's a
yes,
pro, but what are the
yes.
cons?
Because they call it like you're the big fish in a little pond, right? But then the con is you get into a program where you're gifted and talented. People have been telling you you're so gifted all this time, and then you realize that you are not the smart. It's like not being the smartest person in the room anymore, and now you become like the small fish in a bigger pond, and that
Well,
may
man,
take more anxiety and other
that's what I
things
was
like
about to say. Like the
because
pressure, though.
now
Like
the
you put that.
dynamics of everything has changed.
Right, right. And you put pressure on yourself. Like
Oh
when
yeah, for
people
sure.
telling you, that was one of the things I read. I remember reading this when Aiden was little, and they always said, don't say, oh, you so smart, or
Mhm.
you're gifted, or you're talented. Like, don't tell your child that. Even if they are, there's like, they put pressure on themselves. It's better to tell them exactly what they're doing. Like,
Right,
oh, those problem solving skills you use were great.
right.
Or man, you have a great memory, or that was a long
Be
time ago,
specific
dude. That was
about
a great
imitation.
long-term memory. Or yeah, be more specific about your praise rather than just saying you're smart or you worked really hard on that. Because the other
Right,
problem is that you start telling a child, oh, they're gifted, oh, they're talented, oh, they're so smart,
right.
and then that they don't really have that grit anymore to
So that
try.
was one of the cons. That was one of the cons, the lack of work ethic. Go ahead, teacher, because then certain things have come naturally to them.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't actually put forth the extra effort of things because natural ability gets you in the door, right? But
Right.
like Tom Brady can throw a football naturally gifted. That spiral is good, baby. It is tight. But he practices, and LeBron practices to a higher level than anyone else as well, and that pushes him through. And if you're just telling your kid, "You smart, you smart, you smart," then they get to a higher level when they have to step it up their game. They like, "Wait, what is this? I'm
Right.
supposed to be
I'm
smart,
smart. Why am I
right?"
not
Right.
understanding this?
What you doing?
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
other thing is like, so one of the other pros is academic challenge and academic engagement. You raise the level of instruction because you're giving them a challenge. And then there's a lot of student achievement, when they're doing well,
Yeah.
how that can pour into their self-esteem. And also they did like one of the pros was that gifted children in K through 12 may sometimes go on to have higher levels of graduate education and higher doctoral degrees, which I thought was interesting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and one source said improved socialization, and I was like, I could see that among each other. But my other flip side of that is the socialization piece is like you might be in among a community of your peers. Like if you stuck out like a sore thumb and you were very,
Mm-hmm.
very gifted. Like I could see you being with other gifted people and say, oh, these are my people. I feel like I belong. But then on another note, I know a large number of schools here. I was just talking to some kids who go to a very high achieving school, and the school is all about academics, and there's a lack of socialization there outside of these one group peer group.
Mm-hmm.
And so your diversity of people that you're actually engaging with and interacting with is much more, small, which changes your entire view of life.
Mm-hmm.
Like grow up, like that's a hard pill to swallow when you get around other people and more diverse cultures and people that may not be academic or creative as you, but may have other strengths, and how that could go.
Well, then I guess it kind of depends on what, like we talked about, how there's always maybe something else going on. So if you have kids that are dealing with anxiety, but they're gifted and talented, or ADHD, but they're gifted and talented, or autism, which socializing is, it's a big thing for them. It's something that comes hard for a lot of kids with autism. So like when you put all of that in the mix, then there could be a lot of social anxiety amongst that group of people. But it's like when you pull out like the creativity and that exploration and allowing them to invent in that environment, they excel. But when you take them out of that environment and they have to just depend on their social skills, sometimes that can be really hard.
Right.
For
imagine somebody being exceptionally smart but can't do an interview. You're going into college interviews or even med school interviews. I think of exceptionally smart people, and I'm like, wow, on paper they look good, and I'm like, can I work with you?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yep.
I know. And you brought up a good point about also the higher incidence of anxiety, depression, social anxiety in kids who are gifted and talented. And a lot of it, like you said, comes down to the expectations that they place on themselves because they feel like I'm such a high achiever. I should be. And anytime somebody using the word should, it's going to go all downhill. Okay?
Right.
Really, it's one of those things I really wish we would eliminate because the word should causes so much anxiety because it's a preordained way that you think you're supposed to be. You're trying to meet what may be an unrealistic goal.
Well, I'm just thinking about myself. I'm like, you 9 years old, you should be doing it. As a parent, like,
should he?
Yeah,
and then, but that should get you into like perfectionist tendencies, right? Because you feel like you want to be right, you want to be perfect, you want to be on the mark, and they worry about whether they're making a good example, whether they're doing the right thing.
Oh yeah. I mean,
like, I'm thinking of a lot of GT kids when they're getting through GT, they're there like in middle school or elementary school, and those are the times where they're forming their moral development. Is all about looking good, like it's all about not being seen as a bad kid, being on par with what the social norms are. That stage of development is what that's all about. And so I'm thinking about a gifted kid that's perfectionistic and wants to look good. That breeds a lot of anxiety that they put on themselves. And so you see kids that can't perform in certain areas, or they have so much anxiety, or they procrastinate a lot. Because what happens is, this is the cycle I see. They have so much stuff. They know they're high achieving. They want to get it done, and they want to get it done right. It's so overwhelming to them, so they procrastinate and they don't do it right. And they do a wait right until they get up until that time. The whole time they're thinking about all the stuff they have to do, causing more anxiety. They finally get to a point they have to do it, and then they get the project done, only to have to start the cycle over with the next thing. And so they're going cycle of anxiety all through their head about what they should do, trying to get it done and starting over again.
Well, and I think one of the reasons for the procrastination too is, like you said, that whole anxiety and thinking about, like, for my child, he's eager to please. Like he really wants to do the right thing. He was always one of those kids that you didn't have to really get onto them. If you talk to him in a stern manner, tears would come, like, because he was just so eager to please. So I think sometimes with the procrastination is that there is just so much mental about, like, are they going to like this? Or am I
Right.
doing it right? Or is this, like you said, is this
AKA anxiety. Those are all anxiety thoughts.
right?
Those are worry thoughts.
Right. Worry thoughts. Yes. Yes. Yes.
And
Totally agree.
20% of kiddos that are gifted have perfectionistic tendency. That's a
Oh, yeah,
pretty
absolutely.
average. I mean, a pretty good number.
That
And
is a,
yeah, I mean, it's not all bad to be a perfectionist because you the detail oriented and getting things done and the finished product looks so pristine, but it also getting you there. You know, there's a lot to get that product produced, and it's a toll on your mind and your body. You know,
and then I think elementary, there's a process, right? Like you might be a perfectionist, but you're still learning you're still learning the perfection, like, right? Like, so you're a perfectionist, but you don't really know how it's supposed to look because you're still
hmm
learning how it's supposed to look. So then
hmm
that anxiety of like, when you
right,
see another project like that, or you see something, you're like, oh, that's how it's supposed to look. Then they become down on themselves because their finished project, even in for them, was perfect because that's what they knew. But as they get exposed to other things, it's like mine didn't look like that. And so now mine is not as good. You know what I mean? Like that whole
right.
comparative
And the
type
other
of.
thing is, yeah, I do agree with that. And you know, I also was thinking about just there as you were talking about the ADHD that comes with it as well, and how that contributes to anxiety. Because sometimes, not you can be very gifted, but then you cannot have a good focus for things, and having that anxiety and the ADHD rolling around that together with those perfectionistic tendencies can cause a lot of distress for kids as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Okay,
So,
so let's talk about this too. I mean, this is just off the hip too that I'm thinking like when we talk about our Black kids, like and you're talking anxiety, you're talking ADHD, you're talking, these type of things that let's just take ADHD for example. We all know that the percentage of Black boys are disciplined a lot more in the school settings than any other race, right?
right.
And minorities in general are disciplined a lot harder and
Mhm.
quicker and for simpler things than other races. So let's take that ADHD gifted child, right? And they are maybe can't focus or can't sit still, or well, they're getting disciplined differently. Is not just a redirection, especially in your more predominantly white areas. It's not
Mhm.
just a, oh, redirection, sit down, Johnny, or
Right.
let me help you with this, let me give you this stress ball or this fidget ball. It's
Oh,
a
for sure.
it's a let me take your tickets if you have a
Mhm.
ticket system, or
Right.
let me give you a demerit. And that used to be, let me give you a
Well,
demerit, or let me send you to the office, or
mhm.
check mark against you. And so I feel like sometimes with teachers that clouds that gifted part of them
Right.
because they're so focused on the discipline
Right.
or the behaviors. And so then now you have less Black kids getting referred to gifted and
Well, let
talented.
me. Okay, this is going to bring me a question. I just thought about this. It popped up in my head. So, as a mom of a Black male gifted child, do you know? We always talk about the talk, how you are
Mm-hmm.
performing. You know, when you're going out in the world, when you're engaging with police officers, when you're engaging with people of authority, is there a talk that you're giving your Black son who is gifted so that people don't penalize him and miss his giftedness?
Right.
Like,
So
is there a talk for the school? You can't do that like such and
mhm.
such. You need to sit yourself down if the teacher tell you.
Right. So I think there is a talk, right?
Mhm.
Like in general, I think you do have this talk, like because it's constantly, no, you can't, even simple things like wearing a hoodie on your head or
Yeah.
you know like there is a talk, especially when you are a minority in a school and you already know your little Black child is going there and they're gifted and they don't know, that these teachers may not know the magnitude of your child's giftedness or potential. Yeah, good.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely there is a talk, right? But at the same time, you have to worry about, is this going to cause more anxiety? Right. So like if your child is already a perfectionist and they're already anxious about every little thing they do, then like I would say we tried to have a talk, but not really, because we knew that it would cause him to reflect. Yes, it would cause him to reflect more than necessary.
Be more self-conscious about himself.
Exactly. And so there would be more anxiety there, which is going to spiral the behavior for teachers to see, more behavior. So, and for me personally, our response was to go to the teachers and not to him first, because we knew that that would cause more anxiety for him than anything else. I will say though, should I have gone to the teacher sooner? Probably so, because we've already gotten to situations where, there's some behaviors of chewing and getting in trouble for simple things that, at the end of the day, he really shouldn't be getting in trouble for.
Right.
So the sad part is, yes, there's a talk, but the other sad part is, you have to know your child. Like, you have to be careful, because you don't be, just because there are, and I don't use this word, just because there are ignorant people out there who are going to treat their child differently.
Right.
Yes. Lack of knowledge. That doesn't mean I'm gonna put that pressure on my child, because there are other people out here who don't understand. Like, I need to educate them, because at the end of the day, he's still a child, right? So I don't know. That's tough. Now you about to make me go back to my mommy meltdown, child.
Girl, I'm sorry, girl. But I thought that, it just came to me about how we just, this unconscious, this unwritten rules that we have as Black mothers in all areas of our life to shield our kids, whether it is on the streets or with the school teacher. Who is not there to do any harm to them and there to educate them, but we having the same conversation 360, no matter where they are, and especially for kiddos who we know have the potential to do better, be better, or have a natural ability that exceeds those of their peers.
Right.
So I hear you saying, one of the things was go to the teacher early. You do have that talk with your kid, but you have to weigh out, can my kid handle this talk, or do I need to intervene in other places? And if you feel like your kid is gifted and talented, and especially if your kid is a minority, you need to go fight for them, because it don't take no for an answer in terms of what your kids should receive. Don't let anybody else limit your kid's abilities.
Right. And you as a parent can refer your child to gifted and talented. You don't have to wait on the teacher. You figure out when that refer. If you really feel like your child will benefit from that program, or that your child is gifted and talented, all our kids are gifted and talented. But if they meet that criteria for the school to be in that program, then refer your child. You can refer your own kids. And I will say, yes, you can. You can do a parent referral. Now, the teachers are going to have to fill out something, but you can initiate that process and do a parent referral. And then, you'll fill out something, the teachers will fill out something, and then your child gets tested.
And so I just want to go back to just sum up everything that we talked about is fight for your child. Make sure you're communicating with your teacher. Be comfortable having the talk if you think your child can stand the talk. Also be mindful of, how much effort your child is putting into things because of their natural ability. Because we talked about the pros and cons, right? Noticing also the way you engage with your child. Make sure you know if your child is gifted in one area and not so gifted in another. Because it will transform the way you speak about them to certain issues in the work that they're getting done, and may decrease the amount of anxiety, depression, or stress that they have about school, because they're stressing out trying to do something they don't have the ability to do, and they feel like they should have the ability to do.
Right.
And, I think that's about all. Anything else?
Well, and you know what? Let me say this too. I think sometimes we would be surprised when we do have those conversations of how understanding people really are. because I ended up having a meeting with the principal, the
Mm-hmm.
teacher, and the speech therapist, and it was an art meeting, but we IEP meeting, but then we kind of transitioned to, Mom, I know you have some concerns. What are your concerns? And they were very open and willing to hear my concerns. And we all came up with plans to help with the anxiety and to, although, there are certain things at this process they can't do with the gifted and talented. That's at more of a district level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like my whole point was to tell them who my child is and for them to
Gotcha.
get to know, like, this is who he is and this is what he needs. And so and I think as a Black mom, like, sometimes we have to not be afraid to point out unconscious bias, because I'm at that point now where I'm able to say, hey, did you know 9% of African Americans are in
Right.
advanced programs, which is a low number. I'm okay to say, hey, there's research that the overrepresentation of Black kids in special education, it's a ridiculous number, and pointing out just the unconscious bias and stuff. Everyone I have talked to in the new school district,
Mm-hmm.
when I've pointed out those things, have been very receptive of my viewpoints, because I think they understand too is that I'm going through what I go through is different from
Right.
what they may go through, especially as a minority in the school district. And so they've been very open and willing to hear my concerns and to work with me. And that's been my main point. Like, we have to work as a team. And so whether that's special education, whether that's gifted and talented,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's
Mm-hmm.
just providing my child with what he needs in the classroom, it's a team.
Mm. Okay. And so I have a question I was reading. We got about 5 more minutes, and the question of the day. The question
Question of the day. That's right.
of the
Okay.
day. Oh, this one's for you because I've written down a couple of them that were sent to us. Um, Good afternoon. I love you guys' is YouTube channel. I have subscribed. I have a question about my kid who is about 7 years old. They're in school, and I want to make sure that am setting my kid up for academic success. And what is sorry. I was trying to see if they defined what they meant by academic success. I was in my head. How do I do that? And what would be your goals, or what would be the things that I should do to start this? So, setting a kid up for academic success. Now, I would say I'll let you answer it or what you think would happen, like academically. But I'd say for mentally at this point, or if you're thinking about mental health, or if your child is someone who has struggled with ADHD or struggled with depression, anxiety, or they have medical conditions that have limited them from being able to do what they want to do. The first thing you want to do is kind of know your child, understand your child's needs. And the second thing you want to do is be in the communication with the teachers, the counselors, and the people who will interact directly with your child. Like, one of the things I hear Amber saying all the time, and even today in this episode, she said, I wish I would have told the teacher earlier or had those discussions with the teachers earlier. So I think the first thing is having a relationship with the people who are teaching your kid and making sure that they know your kid. I'm kind of, I don't know, as far as academic success, that varies. Do you want them to be 100 top tier, or the first five that graduate from high school, or to get a full ride to an Ivy League college? I'm not sure, but I think talking with the teachers, if your child has been diagnosed with anything or is seeing a mental health professional, make sure they're following up on that, because oftentimes the things that we've talked about in the last couple of episodes is they kind of build on each other. So if your kid is struggling in the mental ill health area, they're having depression, they're having stress, they will additionally have problems in the academic field too. So for me, my thoughts would be talking to the teacher, making sure your kid has all the accommodations that they need, knowing your kid and knowing what they need. And I think those will help you set up your kid for academic success in the realm of having any mental health issues or depression, anxiety. What do you think, Amber, as far as, It's a vague question, as far as setting up kids for academic success.
Just setting your child up for academic success, and they were 7, right?
Yeah.
Your child was 7.
I was like, you may know something.
I would just say, do supplements at home. Like supplemental work, like because a lot of times, I don't know what y'all are experiencing, but they're not really having homework like we used to back in the day, which is fine if they're getting what they need. However, for me and my household, I have their own.
They got school every day, y'all. They be in school.
No, they don't. They don't. But there are supplements that's fun. Like, I don't use ABC Mouse, but I know you use ABC Mouse. We use a program called Reading Eggs. We use Smarts. We have all these other reading and math programs that are fun for them to do. And so I think that's one way to set them up as well. Like not just, and then I get to know I'm not just learning just at school. I'm learning at home too. And then they can ask questions, academic questions at home and everything. So I think that would be my main thing is just create an environment at home that's learning as well. Not stressful, just fun learning.
I like it. Well, all right, guys. Thank you for hanging in with us today while we're on live. Contact us. Please like, share, follow, and repeat.
Like, share, follow.
And we will see you next week.
We got one more episode. Next week is the finale.
The finale.
Join in.